We're going to take a quick look at some of the key concepts from Chapter 7, which is the economic perspective of media. We'll start with the players, the main components involved in the whole economic part of media. First is basically us, the consumers. We give our money and our time, which we'll talk more about in a minute, for information and entertainment. Advertisers, of course, give money to reach their target audiences. Media companies attract the audiences to earn that money that comes from the advertisers. And then there's media employees. And you'll read more about that in the chapter. So in terms of the way that money is generated from us, the consumers, there's both direct and indirect costs. So the direct costs are those paid directly to the company. So paying for a subscription to Netflix or Hulu would be an example. Purchases that we make. So buying a movie from Amazon Prime Video or buying a song from iTunes would be examples of purchases. So we're actually, money is going directly from us to that media company. But there's also indirect costs. This is the time that we spend consuming messages and ads. So of course, again, media companies sell time to advertisers, and the advertising cost is added to the price of a product. So you think about how many commercials there are for automobiles, for cars from General Motors or Toyota or Honda. And so when you buy a car from them, a significant portion of the money that you have to pay for that car or truck or whatever it is you're buying is money that helps cover the cost of the advertising they pay for it. So it may not be a direct cost, but it's still very much a cost. And the balance is shifting from direct to indirect, that more and more the money that's generated is from those indirect costs. One example of this is something called product placement. This is where in things like movies and TV shows, they will purposely put a product in there and the company will pay them for the right to do that. So here's Robert De Niro using an Apple laptop in the movie The Intern, and Apple paid a fee to have that there, and we paid for it with our attention. This is a BMW driven here by James Bond. This is from Supergirl, and there was a fee paid by Popeye's Chicken to have their restaurant appear in the movie. And one of the most famous ones, because it was one of the first really big, well-known product placements, was from the movie E.T. back in the early 80s, which used Reese's Pieces, that Elliot put out Reese's Pieces to help track down E.T. And then there was cross promotion, as you see at the bottom of this slide here, where then Reese's featured pictures of E.T. on their product. So advertising as the engine, advertising drives growth for media industries. Media industries have to be able to get that revenue to continue to grow. We'll be doing a whole separate chapter on advertising and dig much deeper into that. The importance of advertising has actually grown. And the reason why is we have just demographically in our country, many more white collar workers, that work in offices and so forth. They're not self-sufficient. In other words, if you go back 50, 75, 100 years, you'll see many more people, especially in America, who were able to be self-sufficient. That is to say, they lived on farms and they were able to grow their own food, their animals, and be able to be self-sufficient. That's just much less common now. And then we have high employment and discretionary income. There are obviously ups and downs in employment, but generally we have relatively high employment and people have discretionary income. In other words, they have money to spend on things they don't necessarily need, but more that are wants. And advertising is key to selling products for discretionary income. And it makes it possible for new goods to enter the market, that when a company comes up with a new product, that they really depend on advertising to get the word out. And of course, sometimes it's successful, sometimes it's not. And you think about a new restaurant, sometimes they make it, sometimes they don't. Here's an example of a product that never really got off the ground. I'm not sure it even got past the market research stage, but it's Mountain Dew Doritos. In other words, it was Doritos flavored Mountain Dew. Didn't catch on, shocking. All right, so when it comes to maximizing profits, of course, it's making as large a profit as possible is what it's all about when it comes to for-profit organizations, whether it's media or otherwise. And increasing revenue streams is something that is critical to that. So appealing to more than one audience. So if they're able to present something that appeals to more than one audience, that's of great value. So think about one of my favorite franchises, which is Star Trek. Star Trek appeals to multiple age groups. A lot of young people like Star Trek just because it's exciting and they like the special effects and the aliens or whatever. But older people take a greater interest in it also, in part because Star Trek has a lot of social messages that are in it. And so it appeals to a wider range of ages than a lot of other things. Generate money from one audience in multiple ways. So think about Harry Potter. Obviously started out as books, then it became movies, and then there's video games and toys and clothes and so many other things. So generating money from the audience of people who are Harry Potter fans in lots of different ways. And then merger and acquisition activities, which is something that's constantly a part of media. So you think about Disney owning the Muppets and Star Wars and Marvel Comics and other things would be an example. And minimizing expenses is key. And again, in the chapter, there's much more information about that. But one of the things to keep in mind when it comes to profits, its startup costs are very high. That is to say, to begin a new TV network, a new magazine, a new newspaper, whatever, is a very expensive thing. And so let me show you an example. Several years ago, the Fox Media Company decided they were going to get into sports. They had not previously been part of sports, but they saw that ESPN was extremely profitable and wanted a piece of the pie. And here are just some of the things that they had to buy to be able to get into that market. A deal with baseball for $4 billion, a deal with NASCAR for $2.4 billion, $1.4 billion for Pac-12 college sports, $1.2 billion for Big 12 sports. Those are enormous amounts of money. And so for somebody to start up a company and get involved in that is out of reach of just about everybody. But because Fox was an existing entity, Fox Movies, Fox News, and some of the other things that are part of them, they had the money on hand to make that investment. But most organizations, most people wouldn't be able to do that. One of the things they also do is try to reduce risk. And so there is this marketing concept: begin with the audience needs, then construct messages to meet those needs. And so you look at what audiences are wanting. So we're going to be doing a chapter on reality TV, but reality TV compared to other types of television programs is a relatively new thing. And so when it first started out, really Survivor was the first one, and they saw that there was an appetite for this and money to be made, then they started constructing more and more programs that met that need. And one of the things that media companies do is they go with what works. So they go with sequels and spin-offs. So if a movie is successful, they'll oftentimes make sequels because there's a much higher degree of confidence that that movie is going to make money because they already had an original that was successful, as well as spin-offs. So you think about all the CSI TV shows or Law and Order TV shows, they're going with what works. So when it comes to our approach to media as consumers in terms of the economics, there is a default strategy and a media literacy strategy. And so the default strategy, that is when you're not really making use of media literacy skills, involves maintaining a minimal level of uninterrupted satisfaction. In other words, you just accept what they give you. Netflix show ends and they show you people who like this show also like this show. And you say, all right, you just go with it. And you don't really give it a whole lot of thought. You rarely search out new experiences and messages. So there might be a lot of things out there that we might like better, but we don't make the effort if we're not using our media literacy skills. Value is determined by low cost rather than high return. So there might be, for example, a movie that is really appealing to you, but you have to pay to get it. You'd actually have to, buy the movie on Amazon Prime or something like that, as opposed to whatever's already on the subscription service you have. So the movies that are already on Hulu or Netflix. And so what you watch may not be your first choice, but because there's no extra cost to you because you already subscribe to that service, you just go with it. And so we allow media to condition us, that they tell us what we should like, and we accept that. Now, when you look at it from a media literate strategy, we understand the economic game. We understand the role of the different players, especially us, and how the media would really like to use us to be able to make as much money from us as they can. People with a strong personal locus tend to make greater use of this. Personal locus, you may remember, is basically motivation. You have to care. And you should expend greater effort. So use the media skills that you have, improve your knowledge structures, and seek out more interesting experiences. As an example, let me show you this. This is, according to the American Film Institute, the top 25 greatest movies, not the most popular movies, but the ones that experts say have the greatest quality. And so there's obviously some in here that are popular movies. There's Star Wars and E.T., The Godfather, Gone with the Wind, Wizard of Oz, which actually, when it first came out, wasn't popular, but got popular later. And then there's movies that are not as well known. All About Eve, Chinatown, Raging Bull. So if you're someone who really cares about the quality of what you consume, you might take the time to go out and seek some of these movies, because you know that people who are experts in the field say that these are the top quality movies. All right, that ends our look at concepts about Chapter 7. Thank you.